DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you have expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, we're not done. You get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then what we do with all of that, we go put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book. We got several books, but one specific book, and this daily masterclass, all under one umbrella. That umbrella is called, let's say it together, can we? Work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I need to explain to you this type of person I'm going to describe here today is not a new individual to our community. This person has been around for a long time, but they have become, they made a comeback. All right, there's a new prominence to this individual for several reasons, some of which we have talked about in the past here on this show, and some of which we will be talking about in the future. I don't really control if we're going to talk about it or not. It really depends on what's going on in the world, and because it comes to people's consciousness, then I talk about it. This individual is a sly individual, a smart individual, an intelligent individual, a person who knows exactly what they're doing, exactly what they're going after. There's some things we can learn from this individual, while at the same time, you got to be careful around these individuals. This person is known as the race hustler. We're going to talk about who the race hustler is, what they do, why they do it, and how they do it. Now, before we even get into this, let me offer a public service announcement to all listeners of this show. This is an important message that I need to get out there for everyone to hear. Because over the last month or so, as I tell you all the time, I have a text line where I'd like you to text me. My number, by the way, I'll tell you right now, is 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. I tell people, send me a text. Let me know what you think of this episode. Tell me what's been the most valuable insight you've gotten from it. What's something that I said that is going to change the way that you think or the way that you act? Or if you disagree with something that I said, tell me what you think about that. And I received a few messages, some of them text, some of them direct messages, some of them emails from people who said, Dre, I really like your show for the personal development aspect, the professional development aspect, the mindset stuff, the confidence stuff, the stuff where you talk about business. But I didn't expect, or I didn't know, or maybe they somewhat are uncomfortable with, nobody has said that in so many words, but maybe they're just being nice, the fact that I've talked about social issues, racial issues, political issues, anything dealing with the cops, these type of things, along the lines of what we're talking about here today, the race hustler. Some people told me they have expressed some discomfort or mild, if for lack of a better term, disagreement with the fact that I've even addressed these topics. Well, first of all, let me say I understand. I understand that some of these topics may make some people uncomfortable, and you may even disagree with some of the things that I say, even though you agree with the 99% of the other content here on this show. So I understand. Now, I want you to understand something. That while I personally, this show has damn near 2,000 episodes, most of the material on this show is not about race or social issues or however you want to categorize this stuff. The civil unrest is the best phrase I've heard anyone use. I don't believe that race is the most important factor about all of us. And if I believe that, then my whole show would be about that. And it would either be super popular because I was talking a lot of woke shit, or it would be super unpopular because I wasn't. But the thing is, y'all know what the name of the show is. Y'all know what the name of this whole brand and philosophy is. It's called Work on Your Game. I think, based on my track record, now you look at the history of this show, the most important thing about you is your game. And I made that very clear, even in the episodes where I've talked about the social issues. But there are a lot of people out here these days with loud voices, with big megaphones and audiences who have forced this topic to be addressed. Topics of race, topics of social issues, topics of police, topics of government, topics of politics. They have forced these issues to be addressed, and they have platforms who have pushed this issue to where it is now. Here at Work on Your Game, let me tell you something that, even though I just told you that your game is the most important thing about you, is the most important thing about what you do in life, at the same time, let's be clear, everyone, we don't ignore the elephants in the room. Now, you may have all the game in the world, but there have been many times, way before any of this stuff was trending, that I had people come to me and say, well, Dre, I believe I have game, but I'm not getting the opportunity I want because, and then there was some externality that had nothing to do with their game that they believe was getting in the way. Is this a real thing or not? Of course it is. And nowadays, since everybody's talking about it, since it's being taught in businesses, since it's being taught in schools, since it is all over any social media app that we get on, since everyone seems to have an opinion on the topic, we got to address the elephant in the room. So that's why these topics are being talked about here on this show, not because I need to chase a trending topic. Again, look at my track record. Okay, I've been publishing online since 2005. You can look at my track record and you can tell me, do I need to chase a trending topic or do I not? And I think the answer is decidedly no. But at the same time, since the show is about personal and professional development, part of your personal development is understanding that even though you have some people with some big megaphones and big audiences trying to force you to think, hey, this thing must be the most important thing about you, or is the most important thing going on, or you need to think this way about it, there needs to be someone offering some type of counter argument or counterpoints, or let's take a critical look at what these people are actually saying and let's find out, let's weigh it against what our philosophy is, which is about the game, and let's see, does this actually make sense? And if there are any parts of it that do make sense, I'll give credit. And there are parts that don't make sense, I will make clear that they don't make sense. And I think I made that clear when I did the anti-racism series. It was episode 1788 through 1791. I gave some credit to the author for some of the things he said that made sense, and I attacked his points for some of the points that did not make sense. And that's the way that we do things here at Work on Your Game. So we need to address these things. I did not. Let me be clear, everyone. And I think everyone knows this, but let me make sure I'm on the record. Race is a real part of the game now. This show is about game. Race has now become part of the game. I did not make it this way. I did not say, hey, we need to make race part of the game. But it is part of the game now. All right, don't be mad at me or upset with me because I'm talking about something that's part of the game. You said you wanted the game, right? All right, you can listen to a show called Work on Your Game because you want the game, right? Is this now part of the game? Someone let me know. Is this part of the game or is it not? I think everyone can agree this is part of the game now because everyone's talking about it, and it's not like everybody's talking about it on street corners. All right, this is in businesses, this is in schools, this is in organizations. There are organizations and companies who are changing their policies and doing different things based on the fact that race and these social issues are now part of the game, that everyone has to address it, and many people are being forced to pick a side. Again, Dre Baldwin did not make this part of the game. Work on Your Game Incorporated did not make this part of the game. All right, all we're doing is looking at the game, seeing what the game is, and saying, okay, this is now part of the game. Okay, we got to talk about it. Now, if this stops becoming part of the game, then we'll stop talking about it. But when it's the game, I got to give you all of the game. Okay, this is the way that it is now. Being that it's part of it, it is my job, because I got a show called Work on Your Game, to address it. I've appointed myself as the guy who gives you all of the game, which includes the parts that you want, the parts that you were expecting, and the parts that you may not like, and the parts that you may be a little bit uncomfortable with. That is my job. It's better that you hear it from me on this show what the game is than you have life smack you upside the head with a punch that you didn't see coming because I only gave you part of the game, or I gave you 97% of the game, but I left out the 3% that you might be a little bit uncomfortable with. All right, this is part of the development. All right, personal development and professional development doesn't mean just talk about the stuff that I want to hear. Personal development and professional development means talk about the stuff that I may be wanting to ignore, or I don't want to hear, or I don't want to be talking about. All right, that's the part of the development that will hurt you if you don't do the development. All right, this is the way that the game works, folks. Just in case anybody was wondering. What's interesting with the messages that I have gotten from people, and what I'm doing here is giving you the tools for mentally dealing with what's coming or maybe what's already in front of you. What's interesting about the message that I have gotten is that no one said that they actually disagree with me. Even though some of them maybe they do, but maybe they're just being, like I said, maybe they're just being nice. Maybe they're just being mild. Maybe people do disagree with me and they didn't message me. So the people who disagree maybe just didn't say anything to me. But as with any topic that I offer here on this show, feel free to draw your own conclusions about anything that I bring up and about the topic that I bring up. And that's why I have a text line for you to let me know. If you disagree with me, you are free to do so. Okay, I'm open to hearing anyone who has anything that you feel like I am off base, or I'm incorrect, or I had the right information, or maybe I just need a change in perspective. You can let me know, because that will become seed material for future episodes. And shit, when you got a show coming out every day, you need all the help you can get. So text me and you let me know what you think of what I'm going to share here today. My number, once again, is 305-384-6894. Once again, 384-6894. Let's get into the points. The topic here, once again, is the race hustler. Who, what, why, and how. This race hustler. What do I mean when I say this? Point number one. What do race hustlers do, and why do they exist, and why do I even care? All right, this is what the race hustler does. All right, the race hustler is usually a black person. Most of the 99% of the time is a black person. We got some white race hustlers out there who want to be on the black team, but mostly they're black race hustlers. They get the white people who want to be on their side to follow them, but they don't ever ascend to the full status. It's kind of like, any of you ever watched a movie about the mob or about the mafia, that if you are not Italian, you can never be a made man. You could be part of the mob, you could do some stuff for them, you could be an associate, and you can be cool with them, but you can never ascend to a made man position if you are not Italian. So any of you who are you buy into any of the race hustler rhetoric, but you're not black, you can't ever be a full-fledged race hustler. So the race hustler is usually a black person. That's the reason I'm telling you that. These are people that tell other black folks that your problems must have something to do with race. Whether that is something that happened way back in the day before you were alive that is still affecting your life now, whether it's some form of oppression that they want to point out, and they are very clever at finding it, whether it is the police, whether it's the government, whether it is white people in general, and what white people have, what white people got going on, or what they hallucinate, what the race hustler hallucinates that a white person must be thinking. Since last time I checked, I don't know any human who has the ability to read another person's mind. So all of these things are the tools of the race hustler. These are formidable tools. Okay, we're not talking about this as if these are not real things. These are real formidable tools, and they have always been around. I want you to understand, race hustling is not a new thing. All right, what has changed though, they're prominent in existence nowadays. Here's what's changed about the race hustler, because we had race hustlers like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. All right, they've been race hustling since before I was alive. Okay, they've been in the game for a minute. Here's the thing that has changed, because back in the day, back in the 80s and in the 90s, when Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson would show up because something happened to some black person, at least they claim something happened to a black person, and almost every time is because a white person was to blame. They don't show up when it's black on black. They only show up when a white person is to blame and a black person is allegedly the victim. We used to roll our eyes at these people. We used to say, all right, here he go again. Here this dude, here he comes with his rhetoric and his speech. We all know what he's going to do. And we would laugh about this guy. We would joke about the race hustler back in the 80s and the 90s. What's changed now in 2000 and the 2020s? You know what's different now? Because nowadays, there's several things actually. First of all, the race hustler's message has now expanded past the black community. Now you got people who are not even black hearing the race hustler and they're saying, you know what, they're right. That wasn't happening 20, 30 years ago. People weren't giving these guys the time of day. But now, people are actually listening to the race hustlers. Now, the race hustlers have become they've become more sophisticated in the way they get their messages out. Now they write books. Now they have YouTube channels. Now they're giving speeches. Now they're working at schools. Now they're making rap music. Now they're playing in the NBA. Now the race hustler's message has spread to so many different places that it wasn't spreading to, again, 30 years ago, before we had the internet and before we had these phones. And now you got people who are not black agreeing with the race hustler. So now different races are starting to pick up the messages of the race hustlers and saying, oh, you know what? They're right. Black people are victims. Black people are being oppressed. Black people should be afraid of cops. Black people shouldn't be agreeing with the government. Black people should have some type of issue with white people. You know what? I'm white. You know what? I am. I must be racist. And just by being born, I must be racist. The race hustler's message is permeated. It's like a fungus. It grows on you. All right. If you don't get rid of it, it just keeps growing on you. It just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. It's like a cancer. It just keeps multiplying within you. This is what the race hustler's message has done, because of the fact that we can spread our messages much more easily to many more people and much more quickly these days. Back in the day, the race hustler only talked to other black people. Now they're talking to everybody. Now it's all over the place. It's in your schools, where your kids go. It's in your business, where you work. And these schools and businesses, guess who run them? All right, people who ain't black. And you know what they do? They go buy the race hustler's book. They go hire the race hustler to be a consultant on being anti-racist. You know what? They create diversity, equity, and inclusion departments to make sure that they're doing things to appease the race hustler. Now the race hustler is basically telling non-black people exactly what you need to do to fit the race hustler's criteria. And if you don't, then you are racist. And if you get labeled racist, you might get canceled. And if you get canceled, you don't have a job. So a lot of this, what the race hustler does, and again, they've been trying to do this for a long time. Nowadays they have gotten to the highest efficiency level of their formula that they've ever been, is try to scare the non-black people into, hey, you are being racist, or something is wrong with you because the color of your skin combined with my hallucination of your thoughts and or your actions, your perceived actions or real actions, you're doing something wrong. You need to change. Now, again, they've been preaching this forever. Nowadays, they're actually starting to get people to listen. So this is I got to get a race hustler respect for their persistence. They have persisted, and this, I'm not being sarcastic. They have persisted in trying to get this message across for decades, and now it's finally starting to get across. Another thing that has changed is that when we used to only have a handful of race hustlers, you could actually point them out. You got Al over here, you got Jesse over here, there's a few other individuals. Nowadays, anybody could become a race hustler. You got a Twitter account, you got an Instagram, you got a podcast, you know how to self-publish a book. Anybody could become a race hustler these days. So now the race hustlers have created these mini empires of race hustler apprentices. And now they can just pop up any given time. And now you got so many race hustlers giving the message out to so many different people. It's like they're just spreading the word. They just got all these disciples to spread the word, spread the word, spread the word. Just get it out to as many people as possible. It's like a virus. It's like COVID. All right, one person gets it without lockdowns and masks and mandatory shutdowns, then it's just going to keep spreading. All right, and there's no herd immunity for race hustling. This is the thing that has changed and why this message is getting out more these days. All right, so now everybody who understands, I think all you understand who the race hustler is. You heard of them, you've seen them. Maybe you just didn't have a name for them. I'm giving it to you. Let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, what is the success of the race hustler? All right, why is the race hustler so prominent? Why have they become prominent enough that I'm giving a whole episode to smoking them out and pointing out exactly who the race hustler is? Let me tell you what the success has been of the race hustler. Race hustler is eating very well today because now they got, specifically, I said non-black people, but specifically they got white people listening. And white people are the majority of the population here in the United States. And let's just say North America. Canada, Mexico, not so much, but let's just say Canada and the United States. The race hustler got white people listening now. They actually starting to get white people's attention. And again, white people who have positions, like positions in the government, like positions in your education, those of you who are students or those of you who have children who are students, like positions at work. All right? People here have a job, or you run a company. All right, they're starting to get the white people's attention now. This is the difference. This is what changed. This is what has changed with the race hustler. They are finally succeeding. They have stuck to their program, and they finally are starting to get through now. The death of George Floyd in the summer of 2020 and other deaths that have been made prominent, amplified, have successfully gotten the attention of many white people who now, quote, see the injustices, close quote, but remembering at the same time, this is outside of what the white people are saying, this is me talking to you. Remember that the media only shows you what they want you to know about. All right, the media doesn't show you every person who dies. The media doesn't show you every police interaction that ends in violence. The media only shows you, they don't show you every black person that loses their life. They show you the ones that they want you to know about, the ones that they decide become news. And as the news industry has a saying that goes, if it bleeds, it leads. And not necessarily bleeding is in blood, but bleeding is in what's going to get the most attention, what's going to spread, what's going to get people emotional, what's going to get people anxious and fearful. That's the thing that they put out there to the world. And it's not to say that these things didn't occur. All right, we know that these things have occurred, the ones that we've seen on the news, but what about the ones that we didn't see on the news? And who's running these news companies? All right, they ain't black-owned companies. They're white people who own these companies. Now, why would they want to put something out there that shows a black person having something bad happen to them at the hands of a white police officer? Because if a black cop kills somebody, that doesn't make the news. Or if a black person does something to a white person, the white person's the victim, that doesn't make the news either. So why do they only focus on this? You draw your own conclusions for that. Maybe we'll get to that later in this episode. But when the George Floyd thing happened and it went viral, it started on social media. It wasn't really on TV. It was really through social media that I first saw it. Now they're starting to get the white people to, quote, see the injustices, close quote. And now the media wants you to know about these things, or at least the ones that they show you, these, quote, everyday, close quote, deaths, and these, quote, unequal outcomes, close quote, as proof of America's racism. Right? And what's the result of this? What's the result of the media, or just let's just say media, period, not the media, but of media, Media could be social media. That means you and I posting stuff. And it can mean traditional media, news media. It can mean government messages. So now we got all these injustices, the things that are happening allegedly every day, quote unquote, and all these unequal outcomes between black people and let's just say white people. Let's just use blacks and whites. All the other races out there, I know there are other races out there who live in America, but let's be honest, nobody's making news about any of you all right now. Right now, it's all about what white people are doing wrong and what needs to be done to help black people. We all know this to be true. All right, I'm not making this up. I'm just giving you the message. You already knew that before I said it. So let's just make it black and white here. Since all of this has created in the minds of many proof that America must be racist, the result is this. Now we got white guilt. The race hustler has created themselves a job. Now, once you get guilt into the minds of the woke white people, and there are plenty of them, and people with positions, people with power, people who can write checks, people who can actually make it decision makers. Now you got the guilt in their mind. Now the race hustlers created a lifetime job for themselves. And this is a win for them. This is not sarcasm, folks. All right, this is a serious topic. The race hustler now has a lifetime job because now that guilty white person who is guilty just by the fact that they were born white, the fact that they have the privilege of not being afraid when they see a police officer, the fact that they have the privilege of not having to live with the fact that there are 400 years of slavery in their genes, the fact that they don't have to live with the fact that they didn't see somebody of their color having a cop kneel on their neck for 10 minutes and kill them, the fact that you are white, all right, now you feel guilty. You didn't do anything. You never said anything racist, never did anything racist. You may not have a racist bone in your body or a racist thought has ever crossed your mind, but because you're white, now you are guilty and now you got to do something. And guess who's going to tell you exactly what to do? Oh, you guessed it. The race hustler. They got a whole plan for you. All right, they call it anti-racism. There's a guy who wrote a whole book on it. You might have heard about it. I did a 4-part series on it, episodes 1788 through 1791. Now they're going to tell you exactly what you need to do. And if you do not follow this plan step by step, then you're racist. And being racist is probably the worst thing you could be these days, when you could be outed and canceled and just basically excommunicated from the woke world because you are not doing things the right way, as prescribed by the race hustler. The race hustler has successfully infiltrated your mind, and now they're going to tell you exactly what you need to do, how you need to think, how you need to speak, and what you cannot do, what you cannot think, and what you cannot say in order to fit their program of, quote, fixing things because of your guilt. Once they get you guilty, it's pretty much over. It's kind of like if you get the HIV virus. Now your immune system is so weak that anything else that comes in is pretty much going to fuck you up. All right, this is how HIV leads to AIDS and can lead to death. It's not the AIDS that kills you, it's the HIV that kills your immune system. Then everything else just messes you up from there. This is what the race hustler does. The race hustler is like HIV. All right, they're going to destroy your immune system, and now you're not immune to anything that comes after that. So this is what the race hustler is doing. Let's move on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, we are talking to race hustler: who, what, why, and how. Number 3, here's the issue with this win. There are a couple issues with the success of the race hustler. Now, everything that I explained to you so far, again, there's no sarcasm here in this episode. I'm telling you the truth of what the race hustler does. I got 2 issues, though, with the success of the race hustler. Even though I'm not being sarcastic, I still have issues with how they've created their success. So let me tell you what the 2 issues are. I can tell you in 3 words. Here they are. One is facts. The other one is truth. Facts and truth are the issues that I have with the race hustler's game, with the race hustler's hustle. When facts and truth are inserted into the conversation, race hustlers disappear like roaches when the lights come on. Or the facts and truth are just quietly ignored. One or the other happens when you introduce facts and truth to the race hustler. It's kind of like, what is it they say you give to if you're around a vampire, it's supposed to be garlic, right? You put garlic in front of the vampire disappears, or it's the same thing. All right, so if you want to get rid of a race hustler, you got to bring up some facts and you got to bring some truth to the conversation. And you can't get emotional in a conversation with a race hustler. You got to have some self-control, self-regulation. You see the 4-part series that I did, 1788 through 1791. I offered a whole lot over the course of damn near 3 hours, facts and truth. Logical facts, absolute facts, and logical truth. Logically breaking down the arguments being made by the race hustlers, logically breaking down the points that they have made, logically explaining to you why many of the things that they said don't make any sense. I did a 4-part series on it. Let me ask you a question. being the number of people who listen to this show and know about this show, let me ask you, how many race hustlers do you think, or people who agree with race hustlers, do you think reached out to me and rebutted anything that I said in that 4-part series? How many people do you think said, Dre, well, I heard what you said on that show, but you're wrong about this point, and this point? How many of those conversations do you think happened? I won't give you too much time to think. I'll tell you the answer. The answer is 0. Nobody. Nobody told me that I had anything wrong there. Nobody said that you are logically incorrect in what you said in those points. Nobody has challenged me on anything that I said in that 4-part series on the Race Hustler. Let me tell you why. Because there is nothing to challenge. If I got anything wrong, you let me know. You got time. Take your time. Write it down. Plan it out. Give yourself bullet points. If I got anything wrong, you can let me know. And again, I wasn't basing my argument on here's some data, here's a stat. I was basing it on logically explaining to you the things that were said in that book. All right? I'm not an economist. I'm not a researcher. I didn't base my arguments around stats. I didn't base my arguments around percentages. I based my arguments around logic. And this is what my show is always based around, the things that I give to you here. Nobody said anything about anything that I said there in that series. And this is what the Race Hustler does. The Race Hustler will either disappear if they were in the room, or they'll just never show up. They'll never come around where they know that the light's gonna get shown on them, just like the roaches don't come out when the lights are on. If roaches are coming out when the lights are on, there's a lot of roaches in there. All right, you want the roaches to go away. All right. The Race Hustler's whole game is built on narrative combined with selective facts taken out of context. So I'm telling you the entire Race Hustler game. So next time you hear a Race Hustler, they will sound very convincing. Okay, I've heard Race Hustlers who were very convincing to me until I realized what the Race Hustler's game was. And this is your defense against a hustler, is understanding what the hustle is. Okay, this is the number one defense against any type of hustler you come across in life. You got to know what their game is. When you know their game, you can take their game away from them. All right, this is why if you're a sports team and you're about to play against another sports team, you do a scouting report on that team. So you know who their players are, what plays do they like to run, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses. So then when they try to use it against you, you can beat them at their own game because you know what they're going to do. This is the thing with the Race Hustler. Their whole game is built on, they create a narrative and they repeat it over and over and over again to the point that you start believing it. The human brain is wired such that if you hear anything over and over again, you say anything to yourself enough times, you will eventually come to believe it, even if it's not true. The Race Hustler is very good at this. They understand this in their bones. All right, they inherently get this point that just keep repeating a narrative, people will start to believe it. Selected facts taken out of context. This is what Race Hustlers do. I did this in 1788 to 1791. The whole series on anti-racism. I pointed out to you how they were taking certain facts, bad data, that were factually, technically correct, but they were not asking any further questions. A researcher asked deeper questions than just taking a on the surface fact and saying, okay, well, because this person has gotten because these people get lower test scores than these people, then the test is racist. This is what the person said in the book. I'm like, well, wait a minute, Kim, you didn't ask any other questions? Well, what about how much they study for the test? What about how much it matters to them to achieve on the test? What about what they did in the whole 12 years of schooling before they took the test? No one's asking any of these questions, and we're just going to say that it's racist and then just repeat it over and over and over again. And when you repeat anything to an audience of people who want to feel like victims, they will buy what you're telling them hook, line, and sinker. This is what the Race Hustler has done, and they have done this successfully. The Race Hustler's whole game, narrative plus taking things out of context. I told you in episode number 1485 that controlling the narrative is for losers. All right, people who need to craft a narrative to explain themselves usually are people who are losing, usually people who are victims, usually people who lack substance. That's the reason why they got to create a narrative. Because when you have substance and you're winning and you know what you're doing, you don't need a narrative. You can just give people the truth. All right, there's no narrative to the truth. There's no narrative to a fact. And since most people don't think and don't read and don't want to hear anything outside of what they already believe, this is enough for the Race Hustler to succeed. The reason the Race Hustler is successful is because we've got a lot of sheep out here in the world. I told you about the sheep back in episode number 1696, how to think for yourself and avoid becoming a sheep. Because one of the 3 truths about people in life is that they don't think, they don't read, and they're lazy. People do not want to have to think for themselves. And when you put people in a position to have to think for themselves, one of 2 things is going to happen. A small percentage of them are going to say, damn, I never thought of it that way. I'm glad you introduced that way of thinking to me. and then it changes them. It changes their paradigms. They have a shift in the way that they look at the world and the way that they interact with the world. That's about, I would say, about 2% of the people. If you talk to a room of 100 people, maybe 2 of them are going to do that. And this is just 100 people taking at random. The other 98 people taking at random, all right, they're going to be annoyed and upset with you, or they're going to completely tune you out for challenging them to use their brains, because that's work. Using your brain is work. The race hustler preys on people who don't want to think, because the race hustler says, listen, you don't got to think. You don't have to think about this data. I already thought about it for you. All right, it's racist. You don't have to think about this fact that I'm putting here in front of you. You don't have to think about where I got the fact from, if it's been just taken out of context, or if there's any other questions that need to be asked. Don't worry about that. I already asked all the questions and I already got the answers for you. Here they are. You're a victim. This is what the race hustler does. And they prey on people who don't want to think. Unfortunately, for all of us, there are a whole lot of people out there who don't want to think. And this is what allows the race hustler to be successful. If everybody in the world thought for themselves, there would be no race hustlers. The reason the race hustler can exist because there are a bunch of people who rather have somebody think for them than them think for themselves. My job is to find the people who want to think for themselves. And maybe one day we'll be able to save the race hustlers. We'll be able to save the victims of the race hustlers from where they are. It's kind of like, I saw that R. Kelly documentary where they had the girls who were, R. Kelly had, like he had kind of like brainwashed them, and they were in his, I don't even know what you want to call that. They were in his apartments and all that, and the parents were traveling all around the world trying to find their daughters to get them from R. Kelly. All right, that's us trying to get the people away from the race hustlers. All right, we're trying to surviving race hustlers. All right, they had surviving R. Kelly. Now you got to survive the race hustler. That's the next step. Point number 4. The topic here today is the race hustler. Who, what, why, and how. Number 4, let me be clear that I'm not mad at the race hustler. I mean, a hustle is a hustle. I can't knock their hustle. I mean, they're doing what they're doing. And listen, if you buy into the race hustler's hustle, that's your fault. I ain't mad at you. You bought into it. I can plant the seed and I can show you the water. Look, there's water right there. But if you don't want to drink it, then it ain't my fault and it ain't your fault. Whatever happens, happens. So I'm not mad at the race hustler. They have always existed and they always will. There will be more race hustlers tomorrow than there are today. I'm not angling to make the race hustler go away. Again, it's just like the flu. It's just like, from the last I heard, just like COVID-19, it ain't going away. There will always be a new strain of the race hustler. All right, so they say there's always going to be new strains of COVID, so it's never going to go away. So those of you out there getting vaccines and wearing masks in your profile picture, all right, it ain't going away. Okay, it's going to be here forever. There will always be, and just like the rest of the world, there will always be bad drivers on the road. There will always be crooked politicians in government. There will always be scammy business opportunities on social media. This is called life, folks. So we can't get rid of the negative things. Pandora's box has been opened. So there will always be negative people. There will always be racist people. There will always be people who you just don't agree with. There will always be people who just are just, however you want to label them, bad people. I told you in episode 1378, way before all this social justice shit popped off, racism is legal, and a bunch of other truths that you need to accept about life. That's episode 1378. Go listen to it, because again, I like to give you these receipts of what I talked about in the past, so all of you understand I didn't just start talking about this stuff when it started going viral. I didn't start talking about this stuff when it started trending. I've been talking about this. All right, these are truths of life that you need to understand, that there will be hustlers out there. The thing is, the reason why I talk about the hustler, not because I'm trying to knock their hustle, because I just want to make sure you, person who thinks for themselves, doesn't get hustled. The reason why you want to be a safe driver is not because you're going to eliminate bad drivers by your example. You won't. It's just so you don't become a victim of one of those bad drivers. I explained the game to you so that you don't fall victim to the hustle. All right, you just need to understand, when you can see someone's hustle, then you won't get victimized by the hustle. Now, if you see the hustle and choose to get victimized anyway, then that's your choice. Again, the race hustler ropes you into their bullshit. From this point forward, from today forward, from this very moment when you're listening to this, I don't feel sorry for you. All right, I don't feel sorry for anyone who's listening to me today who becomes the victim of a race hustler tomorrow, because I gave you the game and you just decided to do what you want to do anyway. All right, there's a difference between being dumb and being stupid. All right, dumb or / ignorant. Ignorance means you don't know something. All right, so maybe before today you didn't know what the race hustler's hustle was. I forgive you if you fell victim to a race hustler yesterday. But stupid is when you know better and you do it anyway. All right, I don't feel bad for stupid people. I do feel bad for ignorant people because nobody educated them. I don't feel bad for stupid people. So if they rope you in, any point from today forward is your fault. It's like if somebody became a crackhead in 2021, or you got arrested for dealing drugs in 2021, I don't feel sorry for you. All right? You already know the deal. All right, you can't deal drugs in 2021. Everybody got a camera. Everybody's a reporter. There's cameras all over the place. How you gonna deal drugs? All right, now you're just stupid. I don't feel bad for you. All right, you are if you're in an interaction with a police officer in 2021, especially people who are black, and you resist arrest, you fight back against the cop, you run from the cop, you start arguing with the cop, or anything you're doing to resist the police officer's will in the moment of the interaction, you're stupid. And if something bad happens to you, hopefully nothing bad happens to you. I would feel bad if you get the ultimate bad outcome, but I don't actually feel that bad for you because you fucking know the deal, or you know the game now. All right, even though it's not happening as much as the news wants you to think is happening, as much as the race hustler wants you to think is happening, you know it could happen. All right, even before this shit was going viral, you know it could happen that if a cop has a gun and they got mace and they got a taser and they got a baton and they got pepper spray and they have authority in the situation, how are you going to resist the person who has all of that and you ain't got shit? All right, that's just stupid. So if you are doing that now, that from this point forward, you're just an idiot, I don't feel that bad for you, no matter what happens to you. All right, that was just stupidity. I can't feel sorry for stupid people. I can feel sorry for ignorant people, but not stupid people. The word is out on these things, everybody. Everybody knows, all right? Everyone who's listening to this has a phone. So if you get caught up in something that you should have known better, that's not ignorance, meaning not knowing. It's stupidity because you knew better did anyway. All right, if you pee in the bed, now you got to sleep in the pee. All right, so don't fall victim to the race hustle anymore because I just gave you the whole damn game. Let's recap today's class, which is the race hustle. Who, what, why, and how. Point number one, what they do, why they exist. Race hustle exists to tell people that black people, that their problems are because of their race, whether it's something that happened to them, something that happened because of them, or something that white people who just have a whole bunch more privilege than they have so that the black person can feel like a victim. The race hustler's whole game is to keep black people feeling like victims. As long as people feel like victims, the race hustler will always have a job. If nobody felt like a victim, the race hustler would cease to exist. They would disappear like the wicked witch of the West just melted in her robes in, what movie, what's the name of that movie? I can't even remember the name of the movie, but y'all know what I'm talking about. What's the name of that movie? Alice in Wonderland? Was it Alice in Wonderland? I think it was Alice in Wonderland, I don't remember. Number two, the race hustler's success. The race hustler is eating well today because they now got white people listening. White people now feel guilty about their whiteness, and now they have to, quote, do something to undo the privilege that the white person has, and they got to fix all these unequal outcomes between people of different races. This will not work, this will fail, and people will be working at it for the rest of their lives, and the whole time they're working at it for the rest of their lives, guess what's going to be happening? The race hustler is going to be getting paid. This is a sweet hustle. Number three, the issue with this win that the race hustler have are facts and truth. Those are the two issues that the race hustler does not want to deal with. When facts and truth are inserted into a conversation, the race hustler disappears like roaches when the lights come on. Or facts and truth are just quietly ignored. One or the other, these are the two tactics of the race hustler. They have no other options. Their whole game is built on narrative and selective facts taken out of context. And since most people don't think, don't read, and are lazy, they will rather have somebody tell them what to think rather than try to think for themselves. Thinking is hard work, folks. And number four, let me be clear. I'm not mad at the race hustler. They have always existed. They always will exist. Me talking about them is not going to make them go away. I'm not angling to make them disappear, just like I'm not going to try to make the flu disappear. It'll always be there. There will always be bad drivers on the road, crooked politicians in government, scammy business opportunities on the internet. This is called life. Okay, this is not something for us to fight. It's just something we got to figure out how are we going to deal with it, even though it exists and maybe we're not so happy about it. How do we deal with it? I'm just trying to make sure you don't get roped into the bullshit of the race hustler. From this point forward, if you do, I don't feel sorry for you because you are no longer ignorant. You would now become stupid. If you pee in the bed, now you got to sleep in the pee. That's the deal, and that's what it is. Text me. Tell me the most valuable insight you got from this episode. Tell me what you're going to do or think differently based on what I shared here today. Did I open your eyes about anything? Tell me what that is. If you completely disagree with everything I said and you think I'm a complete idiot for everything that I said here today, send me a text. You can tell me that too. My number is 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. And tomorrow, I told you it was coming. Tomorrow, we're going to take on Black Lives Matter. I don't need to say nothing else. Work on your game. Dre all day.